Hello, Seren.
Hi, how are you?
Good morning.
Good morning.
You can hear me okay? See me
Yes,
okay?
yes.
Great. Well, welcome to my live stream. I'm so excited to meet you and dive really deep into boundary setting. But before we get into that discussion, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do?
Well, first of all, Nancy, it's so great to be with you today. I'm excited to work with another coach and to be able to help women. To that end, I'm an intuitive business coach. So I work with women who are mid career, executive career level to really help remove boundaries that keep them from being expansive and as big as they want to be.
Tell us about the intuitive part. Super intriguing.
Yeah. So, long story short, intuition is really about the ability to tap into one's gut sense of knowing. And when I'm working with women, I tend to coach them to use not just their heads, their minds, and their brains, but also to go to a soul place and also to go to a place in the physical body. Because a lot of times we'll get information there and we discard it. And we'll talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit today, I hope.
Why women? Why the focus on women?
Um, there are many reasons. I think one of the first reasons is we're typically not seen out in the business world
Yeah.
as much as men are. I think we tend to need more support.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we're weak. It just means we tend to need more support because the business world, the rules were originally defined by men, and we've had to shapeshift to fit into that world. So I want to be a part of helping usher women through to kind of create business on a more equal
Yeah.
field. Yeah.
There's also a layer of guilt that we feel.
Mm-hmm.
Oftentimes we feel unworthy to even ask for help. It feels like we're asking for too much. It feels that we're selfish. So there's all kinds of feelings that we have to learn to manage and reframe oftentimes. It could be that we're just wired differently. We think differently, we operate differently. But like you said, the world is not designed that way.
No, it's not. And we get a lot of messages. We get more messages, I think, than men, at least in the past, about how to be and how to be seen and perceived
Mm-hmm.
in our appearance. And there are a lot of things. And so, how do you navigate your working world successfully, with
Right.
all those barriers?
One thought that just came to mind is I've been told to smile.
Mhm.
Why can't I just be? Like, why do I have to smile? What does that even mean?
Yeah, it's interesting. I have my own assumptions about what that is, but my sense is that, men are used to seeing pleasing female faces. Maybe it connects back to their mom. I don't want to put words
Yeah.
in mouths, but I have also been told to smile. I've been told, you have such a pretty smile.
Oh
It's
my
like, well,
God.
I also want to get across this strategy that we're going to do that, affects millions of dollars. So if I don't right now, it might be because I'm concentrating on what you've asked
Yeah.
me to do. And don't assume because I'm not smiling that I'm angry or I'm not enjoying my work.
Yes. Yes. And I've also been told you're too sensitive. You're too emotional. You're too this. You're too that. It's
Mhm.
like, why can't we just be? So I love that you said that.
Yes. Why can't we just be? I also have been told that I'm very sensitive. I think that's actually what makes me really good at my job. Um, but yes, it is. It's definitely been a cross to bear for sure.
Yeah. And then we start feeling like, oh my gosh, am I too sensitive? Oh my gosh, am I too this? Am I too that? It's a lot.
Hmm. And I think what you just said really resonates for me. Why can't we just be?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we show up if we have the intellectual knowledge, the business expertise,
Right.
and the relationships that we need? Why can't we just show up as our authentic selves and do the work?
Yes, I love that. Now, let's talk about what boundary setting is. Why is this important in the workplace, especially for women?
Well, that's a multifaceted question. It's a good one. I would say, it's challenging for everyone. I think whether you're male, female, or a them. Um, to know when to say enough is enough, or when I've had enough, or when this is too much work for me. I think it's hard. We want to please because we're incented and we're judged based on how much work we can do and how well we do it and how well we play with each other, play along with each other. So I think for me, a boundary is really about knowing for myself what is reasonable and what is not reasonable with respect to my work. And I think it's really important for women because we sometimes have families. So we're juggling that. We need to juggle our own health. We need to prioritize ourselves and our families and our work. And it's a lot. As someone who's had to do that for 20 years, it's a lot.
It is a lot. And what happens if we don't set boundaries?
Well, if you look at the workforce, you get burnout,
Yeah.
stress, disease, addiction, poor health, heart attacks. I was just reading an entrepreneurial article yesterday, and it's amazing to me how many articles get people write about how they had a heart attack or they had to go to the hospital or they had an aneurysm or something. So clearly, the current system is not designed for us to be human, which kind of goes back to what you said earlier, which is why can't we just be?
Right.
It kind of goes together, right?
When I was working at a big tech company, almost everyone had some kind of health issue. And almost everyone needed to go on some kind of leave because it's the environment and we can't sustain that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so we often feel that if we don't always push ourselves, then we fail at our jobs. We won't be able to show impact. And so we just continue to push. But there's a limit.
Yes, there's a physical limit. And
Definitely.
The body is often, the body and the soul and the gut are often telling us very loudly, you can't keep this going.
Yeah.
Yeah. It sounds like that was somewhat painful for you to go through.
It was. Also physically, I had mysterious stomach pains, just always. Almost every day, my stomach was hurting. And this lasted for many years. I've seen doctors, they did all kinds of tests, and there was nothing wrong physically that they could detect. And so they sent me to a therapist. That's basically what happened. And then the therapist says, you know, the gut and the brain are connected.
Yes, they are.
And that's when I knew there's something wrong in the system and it can't continue to operate this way. But knowing is one thing and doing is another thing. I didn't know how to not operate that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was there anyone in the company that was operating in that way, where they were checking in on their health?
I don't know. It was not a common thing to discuss because what was common was we have to go, go, go. We have to show impact. We have to exceed expectations. Right? It was just constantly go. And how can we do more? How can we go faster? Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. It makes my heart heavy. Because I would hate to think that there are a bunch of people, including yourself, that are struggling. And it sounds like boundaries did not exist in that company. I'm not, and it's surprising to me that a company wouldn't see that there are so many people that are sick, but maybe they did see it and they're just like, I don't care. We got to get stuff done.
My hypothesis is they did see it, and that's why they offered really good benefits. Healthcare coverage is top notch. Mental health care coverage is also top notch. There's a reason. It's because we needed it.
Yeah. What's interesting to me about that is by the time you've gotten to the doctor, it's not that it's too late. It depends on the situation, but it's like it wasn't. Health was an afterthought.
Totally. Yeah. So tell us about how anger and discomfort, which we kind of already touched on, can signal the need for a boundary. How do we use our emotions as a guide to help us set boundaries?
Yeah. I think first off, we're taught, I'm going to just use the collective we, we're taught that emotions in the workplace need to be neutralized. And I understand that to an extent, right? You don't want to have somebody having a full meltdown and like throwing themselves on their desk and losing it. However, I do think that emotions carry a message. And when we suppress those and we send them back down into our physical body, not only are we contributing to making ourselves sick, we're missing out on the learning, right? Something is out of alignment. If you're mad at work, something's out of alignment. And I think that if you can take a minute to kind of tune into that, and that's some of what I work with women on, tune into what is that message? Well, I'm really mad because I'm really tired. Well, why are you tired? Well, I'm really tired because I have too much work. Well, how do you have too much work? Because, oh, well, maybe I didn't say that I can't do it.
Yeah.
Right? Maybe I couldn't say that it was too much for me because I don't want to lose my job.
Right.
I don't want to miss out on a promotion. I don't want to appear like I can't handle it.
Yeah.
But I think those are definitely great messengers from the body to kind of just be like, huh, I want to get curious about that.
Yeah.
I want to get curious about why I feel that way and explore that. Even if it's you got to run to the bathroom for a minute, because sometimes we're going from meeting to meeting to meeting.
Yeah.
And just to take a breath.
Yeah.
And just be like, okay, what's going on for me? And that it's okay. It's okay that you're angry and it's okay that you have discomfort.
Mm-hmm.
People shouldn't say, well, why are you so mad? It's like, let's look under the hood there, right?
There's one thing that you said that really jumped out at me, which is I need to show that I can handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And handling it doesn't just mean business or work. It also means handling life.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, women are handling so much life. And we feel that we really need to handle everything.
We do.
Why is that? Why are we wired that way?
Well, I think as we kind of started the call, I think the business world is a man's world. We've had to adapt to living in that world. We want equality. We want equal pay.
Yeah.
We want equal say.
Yeah.
And what that translated was to working harder. And we also are the ones that can bear the children. So there wasn't really a good plan around that, I don't think, because as somebody who had to hide my child for a long time, I didn't tell people I had a child, which was painful for me because it was seen as a deficit to have a child, at least when I first started out. I had to appear superhuman in order to get promoted. And I got all the promotions.
Yeah.
I also got all the medical stuff that you were talking about. And I did not get a lot of time to spend with my daughter. But yeah, you know, I think we've been asked to do something very superhuman. And I'll go so far as to say it's not fair.
Yeah.
Fair. So boundaries are a good way to start to drive in that fairness piece, right? I remember one time I was working and I needed to leave at 5:30 to pick up my daughter, and a woman who didn't have a kid said, "Must be nice to get to leave early because you have a kid." Like, I don't have a kid. I don't have a reason for why I get to leave. And what she didn't know was after I'd go home and feed my daughter and read her a book and take her a bath, I'd get back on the computer and work for another 3-4 hours.
Yes.
And that was not helpful. But with boundaries, you know, at least with my employer, my manager, she really understood. I've had the benefit of having some really great female managers.
That's great.
But having boundaries is really important. Like, hey, this is the time I have to go pick up my child, so she's not sitting there alone.
Right.
And I will hop back on at this time. And if you need to communicate with me at this time, this is where I'm going to be. But it's a challenge. It's getting better, though. I will tell you that it is getting better.
That's good. That means there's hope for the future generation.
There is.
For our daughters.
Yes. It's changed a little bit since 20 years ago.
I want to highlight the struggle that you went through. I'm sorry that you felt the need to hide that you're a mom. That's a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot. It's actually started with when I got pregnant. My male boss at the time, who I really adored, I went up to him and I said, "Hey, I'm pregnant." And he goes, "Why'd you have to go do a thing like that?" And he was joking, but I was like, this is amazing. Like I'm carrying a child in my womb, you know? And I just remember feeling really like conflicted. Like I came out of that and I was like, well, does this mean I'm not going to have a job when I come back after maternity leave? Does this, like, what does this mean? And he was just not thinking about what he was saying clearly. And I assure you, he is a good person. I think he doesn't have children. So, that was really, really hard. Um, and then coming back to the workplace, I did switch jobs eventually. And I just never mentioned that I had a kid. Never mentioned it. My husband, who's pretty amazing, he did a lot of the pickup and that sort of thing for me.
It's the empath in me that's making me emotional. I could literally feel the emotions that you felt in those situations. But the silver lining is hopefully our daughters don't have to go through this type of journey. But like anything else, it's a journey that we as a collective is going through. For the
Yes.
better though.
Yes. And by talking about
Yeah.
it and sharing our stories and talking about the need for boundaries and to prioritize our families and to prioritize our health, we're part of helping to create that shift.
Totally.
And I don't criticize you for having tears or having a full heart here. I think we need to allow our hearts in and remember that we are human beings. We are not machines. We are not
Right.
designed to work like machines. I
Right.
hate to disappoint some of these CEOs. No offense, CEOs, but we're not meant to work like machines. We need rest, just like
Right.
plants. We need sunlight, water, food, and so do our kids.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, it was really painful. So I felt like my child was not wanted at the workplace to even talk about it.
How long did it take you to feel comfortable sharing that you're a mom?
Uh, Probably 3-4 years when she got to be like close to going to daycare.
Oh my
Uh,
gosh.
yeah, I just didn't really talk about it. Uh, Not with people who were of influence.
Mm-hmm.
There, I was like, "What do you need me to do? I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna work on the weekend. Yeah, I'll hop on that plane. Yeah, I'll go do that thing. Yeah, I'll work till 3 in the morning." I was like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah." And hey,
Yes, yes, everything.
I was really good at what I did.
Yeah.
But what I realized is I just wasn't good at taking care of myself or my family. So um
Well,
yeah.
I'm so glad that you have a partner who is able to support you.
Thank
But
you.
I feel for those who don't have that type of support.
Mhm.
Then they're forced to choose between work versus being a mom. And of course, we would choose being a mom.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh, that's a lot.
I missed a lot of like plays. I missed a lot of
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
the Valentine's class party, that kind of stuff.
Uh,
And now that she's a mini adult, I'm like, oh boy, I wish I would have gotten those things. But I will tell you one thing on the positive, which is I don't think she's gonna let anybody tell her what to do or to hide anything.
I've seen that in the future generation, in girls and also little girls.
Mhm.
They and this is a very positive sign. It feels that they're not shy in standing up for themselves.
Mhm.
And that is different from how we grew up.
Mhm.
Yeah. It'll be so so meaningful to see the change in generation
Yeah.
coming next.
Yeah, once your daughter. The thing is, when she gets powerful and strong like that, expect her to use that with you too.
She already
She'll be
uses
like,
it.
but not with me.
Yeah.
The world is like, no. Now I do this like work. But yeah, I think that's another reason for boundaries at home and boundaries at work, and to be able to experience these things with our children,
Yeah.
to be present to our own health and our own needs. I don't think it makes me less of a hard worker. I
Right.
don't think a company gets less of me because I take a lunch for an hour, I go for a walk.
Yeah.
I think companies are, if I look back from 20 years, I think companies are definitely seeing that. I think COVID was a big wake up call. People got a lot of time at home with family, and they were like, I am spending a lot of time at work, right? So, I'm very optimistic about the future, and that's why I think teaching boundary skills is really, really important for women. You need to speak up, always with respect,
Yes.
right, for each other, mutual respect. They respect you, you respect them. But yeah, we need to have better communication.
But it's also uncomfortable feeling that we could set boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
This is basically one of the biggest problems that I face. I knew I needed boundaries, but I didn't know how. I didn't feel comfortable. How do
Mm-hmm.
we do this?
So, one of the things I think that's ingrained, at least in my wiring, was this ability or need to please other people.
Yeah.
And setting a boundary felt like this massive thing that was going to disappoint a lot of people. When in reality, they probably wouldn't think twice about it most of the time, right? So, I think one way to kind of work through what you're talking about is to recognize, we talked about the discomfort, but also like, this isn't about people pleasing.
Yeah.
This isn't about chasing the apple from the teacher or it's not about that. We've got to speak up about the things that we need, and to do that in a way that takes into account our nature. But we've got to stop the narrative around, I need to please you, I need to please Nancy, I need to please this person, that's a lot of energy that we're expending out, that the business isn't getting,
Yeah.
that we're not getting, our kids aren't getting. We don't need to please people, right? It's not about pleasing, it's about doing a good job and showing up and saying when it's too much. But that's the trap, I think, for females is, well, I don't want them to not like me.
Right.
Like, if I don't go to the company picnic, because my daughter's got XYZ on
Yeah.
Saturday, they're going to think I'm not a team player. They're going to think I'm not making my boss happy because she needs to have a lot of people there, right? So I think that's the trap.
What are some of the tactical tools that we could use to rewire this type of thinking? Thinking that if we set boundary, they're not going to like me, or if I set boundary, they're going to think I can't handle it. What's the first step that we could take?
The first thing is, if someone asks you to do something, maybe freeze in the moment for a minute and not feel like you have to immediately answer. So maybe just kind of sit with it for a second, just be like,
Yeah.
you know what, I need a minute to think about that. Is it okay if
Yeah.
I get back to you in like 15 minutes?
Mhm.
Like, don't leave them floating. Like, I'll be back like around this time.
Yeah.
Give yourself enough time to process it. If you're in a group meeting and things are getting thrown out quickly and you need to respond, you can say, I don't know, but I'll circle back at the end of the meeting. But what I like to do is I like to get people to go inside their body and feel how that feels. What does a yes feel like, and what does a no feel like? Right? If someone says, hey, will you do XYZ, and you immediately feel very overwhelmed,
Yeah.
you got to look at that within yourself first and say, okay, can I do this? Do I want to do this? And is this part of my remit as this employee? Right? It's not
What
about
if,
pleasing.
yeah, what if the gut and the body feels like I really don't want to do this? But there's always a but I feel obligated to.
Well, obligation's an interesting thing because it tells us that we should
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And so I'd still want the time out to think about it. I might write down, they asked me to do this. You're in the meeting with a bunch of people. Asked me to Say, I'm going to circle back.
Yeah.
And then just go back and think about that. What are the trade-offs?
Yeah.
Is there potential for you to propose a different solution or to propose a different timeline?
Yeah.
There are certain cases where there's no way it has to get done. But I would still take a pause and really check in internally with self. And I think one of the things when I'm coaching women actually is I talk to them about having a contract with work. So what is your work contract, right? Are you available Sunday through Friday?
Mm-hmm.
How late can you work? What is the latest you'll take a call? If they need you to work on the weekend, how often do they need you to work on the weekend? Is it once a quarter?
Right.
Because it's got to get done. Or is it happening every weekend because the company is not good at planning?
Right.
Right. So I have people draft up a contract with themselves, what they need.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they feel like something's out of alignment with that, that's a good time to go back to the boundary and be like, okay, well, the last 4 Sundays I have worked.
Yeah.
That's not what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to do once a quarter. Oh, well, this company doesn't offer that. Okay, well, might be time to switch companies or advocate for yourself differently.
I recently saw a post in one of the groups that I'm in, and the question was, at what point do we start to recognize that we're not cut out for the job? It was posted by a woman, as you can tell from the tone. So when the environment does not align with how we believe we should work, oftentimes our gut reaction is, I'm not cut out for this job. But my observation is, maybe it's the company, it's not you. But why do we always go inward and feel that, oh, I'm not good enough for this?
Well, to me, what pops up is self-esteem,
Yeah,
and confidence. And earlier you asked, why do I want to work with women? Self-esteem and confidence is probably a big piece of it.
yeah,
Because there are so many talented women in this world
yeah,
doing amazing things
yeah,
every day and raising kids and God knows what.
yeah.
But yeah, I think for women, we do take the blame a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
It's my fault that didn't work out, or I dropped the ball, or I blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
If you observe men in the same scenario at work, I mean, I wouldn't bet my life on this, but I don't think that they do that as much as we do.
Yeah.
And as far as cut out, I think there's 2 things. I think one, there's the blame route, which I'm not good enough. But I think there's also, this job doesn't fit me.
Yeah.
Right? It just doesn't work for me. So knowing that is important. And I think that's why it's really good to have, like I mentioned earlier, to have a contract or have an agreement with yourself.
Yeah.
Be like your partner or your spouse can go over that, be like, yeah, that doesn't, I can't support you to that degree if you were to work that much. Right. I think communication and sensing are really important than this all the time. I'm not good.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Wait a second. Before you start saying that you're the stupidest person on earth, let's take a little break here.
Yeah.
Because it's not working for you. And maybe you're actually quite intelligent. Right.
That brings me to the next question, which is, how can the fear of not being liked or fear of not fitting in impact us or prevent us from maintaining boundaries? It feels like there's so much fear that we're trying to manage.
Mm-hmm.
How can we be stronger in this?
Yeah. Fear is a big one for everyone, no matter what gender you are.
Mm-hmm.
Fear is a big thing. We're always afraid of the things we can't see. And I always say that everyone's incredibly creative. If the world knew how creative we all were at making up stories that are never going to happen, we would have so many novels, they would be on the streets. Everyone is inherently incredibly creative at weaving a story of fear and why they should be scared and why they should hide under the furniture and wired and and it's let's just kind of, if we can slow that little party train down just a little bit, it'd be great. But yeah, I think you've hit on it, which is that, fear is a big blocker. For me, when I was pregnant with my daughter, I was afraid that I was going to lose some of my authority at the company just for the fact that I was pregnant. I was a director and I'm like, well, what if they start to think that I'm kind of like weak
Right.
because I'm pregnant and I can't do what I could
Yeah.
do?
Yeah.
Right. So I had to put that to the side. It was really hard. And then once I had the baby, I was afraid that there wouldn't be a spot for me when I got back.
Oh, yes.
That I would have lost my stature at the company.
Yes.
So yeah, how can the fear of not being liked impact your ability to set boundaries? It's huge. But you have to decide where you want to apply your energy. And it's easier said than done because we are pre-wired sometimes to be afraid. That's why I'm always suggesting slow down,
Right.
sit in the feeling for a minute, even if it's ick, before you decide that you're going to do something that is not in alignment with who you are. But yeah, I think that's the biggest piece. We don't want to make waves. Why can't you just be a good girl? Why can't you just be a nice girl? Why can't you get, why are you bringing that up? Why are you bringing that up? I once had a very well-known boss who said to me, Sarin, why are you always swinging for the fences? Why can't you just like do what's asked? Why are you always trying to make it like bigger? And I was like, I felt bad. I was like, oh yeah, maybe he thinks I'm gonna make it. And then I realized I'm trying to bring ideas to this company and expand what this company is. Right?
Wow, there's so much there. What does it mean to be a good girl?
Not so loaded.
Why
Sorry,
are we
sorry you're
why
new.
yeah. Why is there a need for girls to be good?
Yeah, well, I think some of it's also cultural too. So I'm a child of immigrant parents, and this world, the U.S. was very different from my family. So they were like, well, if we just tell her to be good, that'll be the blanket thing that she can carry everywhere. And then culturally, it was like really important for women to not speak up.
Mhm.
You're kind of the unseen hand, like making things happen around the house.
Yeah.
Dinner, poof appears, things are clean, da 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 da. So that was the easiest way my parents could kind of communicate what to do, was be a good girl. And so I tried to be a good girl for a long time.
Oh my
It
god.
got me really, really tired. And I think I lost out on some opportunities at work because I wanted to make sure I got along with everybody on that, I did what was asked of me and
Mhm.
excelled, right? It's
Yeah.
a big mind trip.
There's so much that is going through my my little head. One is I hope I don't tell my daughter to be a good girl. I don't think that's in my vocabulary, but I need to double check because what does that even mean to be good? There's so much for me to think about.
Yeah. You could probably write your own rules for what you want that to be for her. But I want to go back to something that you said just now. You said my little head.
My little head.
I don't think your head is little. And I checked out your LinkedIn profile a couple months ago before we were going to do this, and I noticed that you went to Carnegie Mellon.
I did.
Yeah, so there's no little head there. But see how insidious it is? It just
is.
creeps in. Just creeps in. You have a big head.
I have no words.
Stuff going in there.
Yeah, I have no words. I don't know what happened, but
I do it too.
yeah, that's just I don't know. Is it muscle memory? Is it just
Like programming? Yeah.
definitely programming? My culture tells us to be humble. We should not brag. And so there's also the cultural programming, the social programming, and just all kinds of programming that affects how we operate and affects how we show up.
Yeah. And when it comes to boundaries, you can see how the more programming we have, the harder it is to set the boundaries.
Yeah.
Which is why I think you're probably a really good coach for product people, right?
I hope so.
We're trying to do stuff to remove those things, those old programming and boundaries, so they can go off and create really amazing things.
Yes.
And that's what I like doing too. I want to rip out the programming.
Yeah.
Not the things that people like. I mean, if you like something and that's a part of you, of course, keep it. But things like I'm less than, or I need to be super humble, or I need to downplay, while a man can really talk it up. Well, it's no good. It's not serving us. Do you
Right.
want me to play in the workforce or do you not? Or do you want me to hide behind the bushes? Because I'm here to do stuff and make stuff happen.
Why do you think sometimes we equate our worth to our career? And is worth the right word to describe what's happening? Because I I don't think that our worth should be tied to anything. But maybe so there's how do you describe this urge or this drive to also thrive in the business world? How do you describe that?
For me, it was instilled by my immigrant parents because my dad was like, I brought you here, let's make it. Right. Or he had me here, actually. I was born.
Okay.
So it started very early. And then I think also being a woman, it's almost like I had to work twice as hard as a man. A
Yeah.
lot of times I was on executive teams where they were all men and me. So I really needed to happen two times in my career. So me and like six other men. So I felt like I definitely had to prove my value in the room and really watch the room and figure out when to speak. Um, and I allowed people to kind of label me as certain things,
Yeah.
which I think cut some of the growth short. It's not their fault. I'm not here to blame a bunch of people. It's conditioning on everybody's part. But I think it's a man's world, and we're trying to like break through that. And I, like I said, I do think there's progress, but at the same time, I think women put an incredibly large load on themselves, and it's unfair. And we need to individually let ourselves out. No one's going to let us out.
Yeah.
We've got to let ourselves out, and we have to also support each other. So that woman that I mentioned that was like, oh, I wish I could leave, that's not supportive at all. You know, we've got to figure out how we want to come together, because it takes personal responsibility and it takes support from a collective, which is why I'm glad we're having the conversation today.
I think the more we have conversations like this, the more we raise the awareness in the
Mhm.
collective that we do need to set boundaries. And it contributes to our overall well being. And when we are feeling our best, we operate at our best.
Mhm. Yeah.
Sometimes we overlook the wellness part because we feel that it impacts our growth. But maybe in that moment, if you zoomed in to just that 1 month when you're sick and you feel obligated to work through it, but if you zoom out and look at 5 months or 1 year, you would know that if you had taken care of yourself in that 1 month, your growth would be much higher
Yeah.
1 year out or 5 years out.
And your body would be much happier,
Yeah.
and your body will be able to do a lot more, right? Um, I hired a woman who was 6 months pregnant a few years ago, and she was awesome. She was highly recommended by someone. And
Mm-hmm.
I met her. I'm not gonna say her name, but she's pretty fabulous. Um, she already had, I think, two kids. This was the third kid. Amazing performer. And we gave her the boundaries she needed, but you know what? She didn't ask for too many. I wish she would have asked for a few more.
Mm-hmm.
But she'd be open. She'd be like, I gotta go leave because I have to go do this thing or that thing for the kids, and here's what I'll be. But she seemed to be good at speaking up
Mm-hmm.
for what she needed. And it didn't bother me a bit. She disclosed she was pregnant. I was like, okay, well, how long do we have you for? This long? Okay. You have to be able to look at the long game.
Yeah, it's a long game.
It's the long game. And the companies, sure, I could spend an hour and just throw mud at everybody and say, oh, these companies are terrible. It's actually, that's not how we're going to change things. That's just going to get us tired.
Yeah.
It's really going to come down to personal accountability and really taking time to see if something's in alignment with our health and well-being.
What does that mean, being in alignment?
Well, like you were saying earlier, somebody asks you to do something and you're like, oh my God. and you say yes,
Yeah.
that's not an alignment because your body and your
Yeah.
soul and your gut are like, why would you sign up to do this? Right. So that's when you're out of alignment. When you're in alignment,
Yeah.
you're like, okay, I know what that project's going to take.
Yeah.
This is how much time. This is my work agreement with myself. This is my agreement with my partner. I can take that on. And then you go and you kill it. You do an amazing job.
Yeah. I just remembered when I was in my 20s, I worked in a startup. There were some women there, but not a lot. And one time I was in a meeting with my VP and my CEO, just the three of us. They're both men. And on the TV, I think someone's laptop or the Apple TV was plugged into the TV. And it was on the screen, you see the music playlist just in the background. And it was Ariana Grande's album cover that was on the TV screen. CEO walks in and makes a comment and says, "Oh, look at that. Look at her boots." And in that moment, I was like, I cannot believe this is happening right now.
And how was that handled?
My VP just had like I don't know, like a locker room bro moment with the CEO.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know what to do in that moment.
Mm-hmm. Because your boundaries were being violated in that moment.
Right.
Something of a sexual nature was being
Yes.
put into an office environment, and you were a woman.
Yes.
Ah,
But
all the stories.
I was also in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Did not know what to do.
So I don't know if you're asking me exactly how I would handle it. I'd probably say probably the easiest thing to do would just be to leave the room. I've got to go to the bathroom or something.
Yeah.
Excuse myself.
Yeah.
But it's inappropriate. I think
Inappropriate.
I probably would just switch the conversation. Now, the right thing to probably do is to say, this isn't really the place for that. But that's when the power structure and
I love that.
all that, it's not really a place for it. But I definitely had some experiences similar to that.
It's not healthy.
I just was like, wow, I cannot believe this is going on. Having like an out of body
Yes.
experience. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Up until that moment. So I went to engineering school. I was always one of the few girls
Mm-hmm.
for many years. And I got used to being one of the only girls in a room. And so in a work environment, being one of the only girls in a room felt quote unquote normal. That's it's been happening for many years before that moment. So but I never felt what I felt in that moment, or the women being objectified and hearing comments made on a woman's appearance. Like all of that to me in that moment was like, oh my gosh, this does not feel good.
I'm sorry that happened. And I'm sorry that I have also had that happen. And I'm sorry that we both know what that
Oh my
feels like,
gosh.
because it's incredibly uncomfortable. And I'm disappointed in the men
Yeah.
that had to do that, or felt like they just felt so comfortable they could just say whatever they needed to say without
Right.
thinking about the environment.
Yes.
I do think, especially after Me Too, and again, taking a 20-year sort of view,
Yeah.
that it's shifted a lot. The awareness has shifted a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I would encourage anybody who's listening today, really to think about that from a boundary setting point of view, maybe even in advance. Like if that happens, how might you handle that? Right.
Right.
And it's a shame that we have to think about in advance if it happens and what to do about it. But it is also a good time to think about what kind of boundary we want to have around those kind of conversations. For me, it'd be a zero tolerance. Right. Sex stuff belongs somewhere else.
Right.
Not at work.
Yeah. Part of it is also men need to be more aware of the energy they're putting into the environment. Some men feel like they need to be very careful all the time. They they're on they're walking on eggshells all the time. But maybe that's how it should be. Maybe women feel like that always.
Mhm. Well, I like that they are thinking about it and trying
Yeah.
to carry themselves in a way and really being thoughtful.
Yeah.
I'll take that all day long.
Yeah.
Risk the other. Uh,
Yeah.
so, for those who are taking the time to be sensitive and aware
Yeah.
of other people, never going to say that's a bad thing, right? To be self aware. What stinks for everybody, I think, is that we don't get an opportunity to be ourselves.
Mhm. Yeah.
But there's a time and a place,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
So I think when it comes to boundaries for them, I think that's great that they're kind of looking out.
Yeah. So, tell us more about how women can continue this conversation with you and um, for those who are looking for more support, how do we get in touch? How do we work with you more?
So you can sign up for a 15-minute consult with me, and we can talk through some of these challenges that you're having at serinsilva.com. Happy to offer that to you. I'm also going to be doing a session on how to have difficult conversations with a women's group called C Suite based out of Los Angeles on November 2nd.
Is that on your website?
It's not on my website because I'm not great at that, but it's csuite.org. It's on my LinkedIn. If you go to Serin Silva, SerinSilva. And I will try to do more talks for people and have people posted questions. I'm also part of another group called Hey Mama. I want to give them a shout out. Hey
Oh,
Mama is a network of women who are working mothers. Doesn't matter what age you are, doesn't matter if it's your first kid and you're in your 20s or if you're in my age and you've got college age kids. It's a great, loving community. It's all business women. Either they've got their own business or they're working at companies, and it's a really great forum. So I'd encourage you, ladies that are on the Zoom today, to check out those resources. We're out there. We're out there to want to help usher in the new and bring the balance in to this life that we want to have. And I want you to have that. I want Nancy to have that. She's got a little girl. Because we do have more loaded on us and we need solutions.
yes. I'm so glad that you're part of this group. Can you repeat the names of the groups that you mentioned again?
Yeah.
You said C Suite.
C Suite is spelled C-SWEET, like sugar, .org. It's a think tank based out of Malibu, California. And then the other one is Hey Mama, HEYMAMA.co. Hey Mama is super like fun, nurturing, supportive. C Suite is also fun, but in a different way. It's more like executive female support. And there's a ton of amazing workshops and sessions on both. A lot of free stuff. Um, and just really, I've tried a lot of different groups, and these groups have really resonated with me, and I've enjoyed meeting the women in those groups a lot. Some partnerships have been born out of those groups.
I just put the links in the chat for those who are on my YouTube and my Facebook. You'll see it. It's heymama.co. And then the other one is csuite.org. Yay. Thank you so much for coming on to my live stream.
For having me.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing not just your personal stories, but also tactics that we could follow to help us set better boundaries that will improve our overall well-being.
You're very welcome. It's my sincere pleasure.
All right, until next time,
Bye-bye.
have a good week. Bye.